Good evening, my friends. It is 5 minutes to midnight on December 31st, 2017. And how many months has it been since I last did a video? I don't know. But I thought it's very important to do one today. After all, this time last year was pretty much when I set my mind on doing these video logs. It has been one hell of a year. So I thought I ought to do a kind of reflection, a roundup of everything that's happened. So, well, got my roaring log fire here, Christmas tree up for the next few days, nice glass of beer, and you know what? Over the course of this little rant, I might even open the whiskey. Yeah, I have a very nice, oh excuse me, a very nice bottle of bubbly in the fridge. About an hour ago I was like, oh, I should pop this open for the new year. And I thought, no, I can't drink a whole bottle of bubbly by myself. And I proceeded to drink like 2 beers. So I'm like, probably could have done. Anyway, I like a beer. So there we go. Right. Let's get on with it. December 31st, 2017. Well, you might be asking what I am doing here in front of my crackling log fire instead of smooching with my wife or something like that. Well, she is pulling a night shift at the hospital she works at, and so that just leaves me at home. The kids upstairs, all asleep, thankfully. I had hoped to be asleep by this time, but I'm having trouble recently getting to sleep. There's a lot going on in my brain. So, I sat down today and I watched the video that I made this time last year, and it was really interesting. I was full of optimism about the year ahead, but I was also very clearly not in a good spot. I think I opened the video by saying, you know, I'm a fat sack of crap. My career was floundering. My home life was floundering. I don't think I mentioned it in the video, but I was just miserable. I was really, really miserable around this year. You know what? 25 pounds lighter. Been working out. Things have changed in unimaginable ways. I am literally a different person ending this year than I was when I came into it, and I could not be happier. So, what happened? Well, okay, let's go through the whole story. 2016 was a shitty year for me. I don't know what happened. I just hit a wall, personally and professionally. You know, I'd muddled through for most of my life, but just 2016 just hit me like a punch in the face. And I struggled through that, and it was tough. And I literally had tears in my eyes when 2016 ended, because I was so pleased. And I started 2017 with, you know, New Year's resolutions like you always do. One of them was just to do these videos. In fact, I remember the video that I posted December 31st, 2016, I said, my new philosophy was you focus on one thing, and if you do that and stick at it, then you can move on to another thing. And I focused on my health. And it's interesting because for the next couple of months, nothing happened. Everything was the same. In fact, January of this year was really, really tough. I mean, like, things just went to hell in a handbasket, and you know, I was in a bad spot. I was doing really badly at my job, so I went out trying desperately to find a new job because I didn't think it was salvageable. I was still the same weight. I was about 192 pounds. Just things were just crappy. But they had got better because we moved into this house. We got a puppy that month, sorry. When did everything change? Everything changed in March, because I'd got into making these videos, and I've been doing them pretty much every day during that period of life, and I was just searching desperately online for things to do. And so, as I said, I focused on my health. So I started by trying to eat better, and I focused on going to the gym more. And I guess I just like triggered things, and I started researching stuff more. And then I stumbled onto this thing called intermittent fasting. That's where everything turned around. So yeah, one of the things that I read about was this thing called intermittent fasting. Basically, if you've watched any of my videos before, you'll know it's a big thing in my life. It's where you pretty much only eat between like a few hours per day, rather than eating 3 meals a day like you're supposed to. You eat in a limited window, and me, I decided I was going to eat from between 5 p.m. and 10 p.m. and that was it. I wasn't going to eat any other time. And you know what? It changed my life. In the space of 2 months, I dropped 20 pounds. And more than that, like the fact that I was spending most of the day in a fasted state, as in I wasn't eating. I woke up in the morning, I had nothing but coffee and seltzer water until 5 o'clock that night. I wasn't getting tired after lunch because I wasn't eating lunch. I had more energy, I was more focused, I was more alert, and that just really kicked off everything. The other thing that really changed during that time is my son got diagnosed in 2016 with ADHD, which is the attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and it was really interesting because every time we were talking to the doctors about that, it's like, well, those are his symptoms. I'm like, I have those symptoms too. I really do. And I found out since then that that's not surprising, because for every kid that gets diagnosed with ADHD, 80% of the time at least one of their parents also has it. That's me. And so I started looking into how do you cope with ADHD when you're an adult. And I think, a lot of mental health things affect people at different times. Like schizophrenia really impacts people in their early 20s, bipolar in their teens and stuff like that. And I've heard a lot of people who say, they were always a bit scatty, but ADHD as an adult really hit them when they started getting into the 30s. It was like boom. So maybe that was where I went wrong in 2016. So I started looking into all sorts of ways to get my shit together. And crazy stuff. I mean, the gym, I noticed, going to the gym, lifting weights every day, running on a treadmill every day, that made a huge difference to my life. The intermittent fasting made a huge difference to my life. I started taking a 2-minute cold shower every day. I used to say ice cold shower. I guess it's just like crank it as cold as it can go. And I stay in there to the count of 120. And it's brutal, but it again changes everything. And life started getting better. I mean, I literally, in the space of 2 months this year, my entire life flipped 180. I went from a fat sack of shit who wasn't able to get anything done, focus on anything, was just failing in every single capacity, and I turned it around to the fact that I lost 20 pounds, I was on top of stuff at work, I was back on top of my writing career, and things are really well, going really well. And that's interesting because then in June of that year, I got laid off from my job, which I had never been doing as well in that job as I could have been doing, but I had turned everything around, so I'd started to really make some progress. I don't think it necessarily had anything to do with that, the reason I got laid off, but it was kind of interesting because I got laid off right at the beginning of the summer, literally a couple of days before the kids stopped for the summer. And it'd be interesting because my wife and I, we've been talking about like, oh my god, what are we going to do with the kids all summer long if we're both now working? Because I was earning good money, but can you afford to put them in daycare? It was going to be tough. And then I got laid off, and suddenly like, okay, problem solved. So it was one of those things. It was, I got laid off, but I got a severance package. So it was kind of like, well, instead of blowing all this money on the daycare, I could just stay at home with the kids. But the interesting thing was I could stay at home with the kids and I could do my writing. And this is where things got really, really interesting. My dream, my overriding dream for years has just been to write full time. And I think one of the things is I've been writing and I've been very successful at it. 2015 especially, I was very, very successful at writing. I made more than a full-time income. Sorry, looking after a friend's daughter, so shut up! 2015 I made more than a full-time income. 2016, like everything else in my life, that just went But 2017 things really started to pick up, even before I got laid off. And then when I got laid off, it was like, and I realized, you know, I could stay at home with the kids, I could write, and I could go to the gym every day. It was fantastic. So July and August, it was amazing. So my wife worked all the hours under the sun because she could, and she wanted to make sure that we were financially okay. But we were financially okay, not just because I had the severance package that I got from my work, but also I was bringing in it wasn't as good as my previous thing, but I was bringing in a full-time income from my writing. And so I used to get up in the morning with the kids, we'd go to the gym, where they had the daycare, I'd work out, come back, a little girl would go for naps, the boys would like play video games. In the afternoon when she got up, we'd all go to the pool, we'd swim for a bit, and then they'd be swimming and I'd be typing by the pool. It was heaven. It was fantastic. And then the kids went back to school, the boys went back to school, and so I spent the rest of the time, you know, I'd wake up in the morning, I'd get the kids ready for school, send the boys up to school, the little girl and I would spend the day together, we'd go up to the gym every day, go for a nap, I'd write. It was fantastic. It was, seriously, there were 6 months with the happiest months of my life. And I'll admit, things changed a little towards the end, which I'll get to that. But there's more. So, as I said earlier, before I got laid off, this whole ADHD thing had come up, and I'd adopted all of these different strategies for dealing with my ADHD. And in September, when my boys went back to school, I went to the same behavioural health clinic that my son goes to, and I said to the doctor, look, let's talk turkey. I'm pretty sure that I have ADHD just like he does. And we had resisted putting him on medication for a number of reasons. But I said, look, I'm nearly 40. Put me on medication. So they did. Put me on a pill called Vyvanse, which is like an Adderall base. It's actually, I think it's amphetamine based. It's basically speed. Oh my God. It changed my life. The most amazing thing, I mean, I took it for the first time, and it takes about 2 hours to kick in. So I normally get up pretty early, so I got up at 6 and I took it. And then I was getting the kids ready for school and things like that. And I was walking down the stairs at about 8:30, and I suddenly stopped halfway down the stairs, and I was like, whoa, everything had changed. Everything had changed. For the first time that I could remember, I didn't have a headache. I was standing on the stairs and I was like, I don't have a headache. And that might not sound remarkable, but you have to realize, I had not realized that I had a headache. Like, for as long as I could remember, I thought my head just felt like that, and then suddenly it was like, wow, my head isn't hurting anymore. My mood was just like chill. And the most amazing thing is, I had definitely noticed during the summer, because I mean, having 3 kids at home is very intense, and with the kids in the morning, that I used to be very grumpy with them, and I used to snap at them. And you know, I believe very strongly in this law of attraction thing. You attract what you project. So if I snap at the kids, they snap back. My eldest especially, you know, with his ADHD, we were butting heads, he was yelling and screaming and stuff. I suddenly noticed I just wasn't grumpy anymore. I didn't snap at them anymore. And the change in my kids was incredible. Like, immediately when I stopped snapping at them, they stopped snapping at me. And it was just, the morning routine just became wonderful. I would get up in the morning, make some coffee, make them pancakes. They just have a chill, wonderful morning, get on the bus, go to school. It was amazing. So the medication just changed everything. And in terms of everything else, it changed everything as well. So I do a bit of freelance blogging on the side, and with the ADHD, I guess, I had always struggled with the blog. Blogging is very, very prescriptive. It's like, I've got to write a very boring prescriptive blog that's got all of these SEO terms in. I got a number of blogging clients. One is very cool, and I write about like interior design stuff, and that's actually really fun and interesting, so I never have a problem with that. But with the other blogs, They were very boring, prescriptive, and it was about putting in like zip codes and stuff like that. And I was months behind. And then I sat down, in 3 hours I caught up with months of work. There's a movie called Limitless, which I haven't actually watched. I've only watched like a couple of scenes of it from YouTube, but there's specifically the scene where he takes this magic pill that connects all his brain fibers and he suddenly becomes a super genius. And I felt exactly like that. It was like suddenly my brain was operating. It was suddenly I had this clarity that was just unbelievable. So yes, everything changed. So I mean, that was amazing. So I was ticking along really happily. So right up for all of the summer, all of the autumn, I was a stay-at-home dad. I got to spend all my time with the kids. I got to spend the rest of my time writing, going to the gym. I got in great shape. I had a fantastic relationship with the kids. The house was always clean. It was amazing. It was wonderful. And I was still looking for jobs, but I was kind of moving to the stage where I'm like, I'm making enough money where I don't necessarily need to get a job. In fact, I actually got offered a job with Johnson & Johnson, and I turned it down because I was like, you know what? The money's pretty much what I'm earning writing, and so there's no real point in taking the job. I mean, what's the point in going to work 8 hours a day when I could make the same amount of money and stay at home? But it was weird, and then I actually got a call from a headhunter in the city, and got offered the chance to go and interview for an amazing job in the city. And right before all of this kicked off, the headhunter had said, like, we like your resume, you're a cool guy, but this is a senior level position, so we're going to put in some people who are more experienced than you, and you're kind of like the wild card because you have some unique experience in social media and stuff like that. You've got a lot to offer, but they might want to go with a more pedestrian candidate, so don't be upset if they don't call you in for an interview and stuff, and they did. And in fact, they called me in for 5 different interviews, and it looks like I might end up getting that job. And it's funny because I got to that point in my life where it's like, I don't need to get a job, I don't need to work, but it was just, this job was just this job. It's funny, I mentioned how in January I've been in a terrible place, I was looking desperately for jobs. And this job was what in January I would have begged for. And then it came to this stage, time of the year. And it's interesting because part of me is like, well, I don't actually need this job anymore. But I wanted it. And I wanted it more than just for the fact that it's a good job and stuff like that. It was everything I've been looking for in January, but more than that, with all of the changes and evolution that I'd gone through, I was like, I could do this. Like, I could do this job. And I think there's part of me that's like, I'd never reached the full potential that I could before in 2016 because I was going through all these challenges. And I'm like, this is my chance to redeem myself. This is my chance to really embrace the new me and go through and grab this job and just be really successful at it. And so, I mean, I don't know. Nothing's in stone yet. So it might not happen, but I'm pretty sure it will, and that's going to be a massive change. And it's so funny to me because literally a month ago, I would never have thought that I would round out the year looking at going back to work, going back to the city. But there we go. And I think, to be honest, that's the story of 2017 for me. It's a story of change and evolution, and then I'm leaving this year for the first time I can remember. I don't know what's going to happen to me in 2018. Like, nothing is. I always used to have plans. I always have plans and ambitions, and they never happen. But now I'm like, I don't even know. I'm in free fall. I'm going on an adventure. Amazing things are happening, and I'm just embracing them and going with them. And you know what? Whatever happens, I'm gonna do all right, and I'm excited. It's interesting. And so through all of that, I would like to say, 2017, in all honesty, in many, many ways, it's been the best year of my life ever. But in many ways, it hasn't. If you've been keeping up with my video diaries, you You know, then April of this year, my brother passed away. And, you know, at the time, I guess I didn't think it hit me that hard. It's especially hit me hard this December. And I've been in a weird headspace with it. I felt very bad about the whole thing. You know, my brother was a really smart guy. He was much smarter than me, and he was a kind guy. And it's funny because I don't know if you knew him then. He was. A lot of people had ended up having issues with him because, you know, he screwed up by not paying his bills or by like borrowing money from them and not returning it and stuff like that. But in his heart of hearts, he was a really kind guy. Kinder than me, definitely. Smarter than me. He was kinder than me. And it was just, I don't know. You can't say life threw him a bad hand because, you know, it didn't. Life threw him comparatively a great hand. You know, he went to a great school. He was a smart guy. Had the same upbringing as I did. But I don't know. He struggled. It's funny. You know, this particular point in life, we are always reading in the papers about, you know, white privilege and male privilege and stuff like that, and I just look at my brother and I'm like, white privilege and male privilege doesn't necessarily help everybody, does it? Everybody's going through their own things, and yeah, it was sad. And it was especially towards Christmas that it really started to hit me. My brother used to say a lot of smart things. And one thing he always used to admit to is he called it the dragon inside of him. He said there was a dragon inside of him that was constantly needing to be fed. And, you know, he fed it with not necessarily good things. And towards the end of this year, you know, I think we all have a dragon inside of us, and we all feed it with whatever. Some people feed it with drugs or booze or sex. Some people fill it with religion. I knew a guy who was massively overweight, lost a ton of weight, and now, you know, he has that same fervor for overeating, except he spends it in the gym instead. I think we all have a black hole inside of us that is just remorseless, and we have to feed it with something. And some of us find better ways to feed it than others. But I've noticed through my life there have been a few occasions when that dragon has been close to my heels, and it's interesting. I just became more aware of it towards the end of this year. I was like, you gotta watch him. The other thing that got me this year, towards the very end, I am a pretty positive and upbeat person, but I don't know whether it was something to do with my brother or all that triggered it, but I started to really just find myself like freezing and just thinking about things and just getting overwhelmed by like this nihilism, this sense of negativity. And it wasn't, depression is a really interesting thing, and I mean, I think depression is almost like diabetes. There are people who are just born with something wrong with their brain and they have like depression, just like, you know, I have ADHD because my dopamine sensors are messed up or whatever. And, you know, you wouldn't complain to a type 1 diabetic that they need to take insulin. Some people who suffer from like depression that they're born with, they need to take antidepressants. I think for the majority of people with depression though, it's like type 2 diabetes, where it's more lifestyle triggered. So, you know, it could be something bad's happened to you, and if you're going through cancer, or a family member's going through cancer, then you're going to be depressed, and that's absolutely reasonable, and there's no reason to not be depressed because something terrible is happening to you. But I think just like diabetics who eat too much, you know, make their condition worse. I think with depression there are things that make things worse, and I notice that the more I got into my routine of doing stuff to combat my ADHD, like exercising every day, taking cold showers every day, the more I didn't do that, the more I really struggled with this I don't know, Winston Churchill called it the black dog, and it's interesting, it's just this, I call it this nihilistic sense of gloom, I would just pause for a second. I'd be thinking like, oh my god, my poor brother, you know, he passed away. And normally I'm a writer, so I always think of people in terms of characters, and you always think there's going to be some kind of resolution in their lives. And it's like his story ended halfway through the chapter. And then I look at my eldest kid, who I love to bits, and he's such a sweet, kind, sensitive kid. I see so much of my brother in him, and I just get crushed by this sense of responsibility. It's like, how can I make sure that the mistakes my brother made, he doesn't make? And I mean, it's a huge responsibility, and I'm just like, I just love him so much, and he's such a great kid, and he's so smart, he's got so much potential. How can I make sure that I can give him the best life possible? And that, you know, I started this year feeling like a complete fuck up because I couldn't do my job. How can I possibly shoulder the weight of that responsibility? And I have 2 other kids as well. I mean, they're wonderful kids, but I'm like, I don't know, it's tough being a parent. It's tough because there's no instruction manual. My parents used to joke about the fact that, you know, they felt like they were still 18 inside. I mean, I still feel like barely got out of being a teenager, and here I am with the weight of responsibility to raise 3 kids when I barely know what I'm doing myself. You know, this year I've got my life together more than I ever have before, but I still don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm like, how am I gonna help my kids with this? I guess you just have to do the best you can. And I guess that's it. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, you just have to do the best you can. And that's the other thing. And that's the other thing, I think, where like the black dog stalks behind you is you just worry that you're not doing a good job. You listen to other people's criticism a lot, and sometimes you just have to turn around and you smack that dog in the nose and go like, shut up, bad dog. I'm doing the best I can. And if you genuinely feel that you're doing the best you can, then maybe that dog should back the heck off. Nobody's perfect. And we can all do better. And every day, it's good to get up and try and do better than you did the day before. But sometimes you get up and all you do is try and tread water. Do as good as you did the day before. So, I don't know. I definitely need to get back into my routines of going to the gym. Go tanning as well. That really helps with vitamin D. It's an antidepressant. The intermittent fasting. The whole holiday season a bit of a screw up because for those 2 weeks you get thrown into a limbo when the kids are around and stuff like that. You know, it's midnight. It's freaking midnight and my daughter is calling me. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. I've kind of been rambling, but thank you very much for listening. So, Happy New Year. It's 2018. There's a line from James Bond film I like, where the father of Teresa de Vincenza, James Bond's girlfriend, said the best years are still to come, and that's what I say. That's the difference between me and my brother. My brother always used to look back at his school days and go, those are the best days of my life. And me, as 2017 proved, every single year has the potential to be the best year of my life. Last year was the best year of my life, and I am hoping 2018 is the next best year of my life, and 2019 is even better, and 2020 is even better than that. You know what? Here is to the best years still to come. Happy New Year. Keep the faith. Let's make all our dreams come true. Goodbye.